Is there anything that drew you to, finance and investing and business, or is that something you just stumbled onto? You know, you're playing with your Legos, and all of a sudden you're like, you know what, I'm going to be an investor.
No, I think it came just through time, because I remember like back in like junior high we did in math class we're doing some the teacher brought in the stock market. We were doing some project on the stock market, and we had to pick some stocks. I mean, obviously I had no idea what exactly. I mean, just from what he told us, like the basic explanation, but
Yeah.
I didn't really understand it. But then there's this friend, a family friend, he was a teacher, and then I told him about it once, conversation, and he got excited. I'm sure I never asked him, but I'm sure he invested. I mean, he's a math teacher, So just that kind of like reaction that I got from him kind of got me like, oh, maybe there's more to this, and then just over time I just learned, started reading up on it. I would start reading the financial section of the newspaper. When
you're dating yourself there, man. Newspaper.
Huh? No, but I mean, it's just like I found it interesting. Just something I didn't understand that I wanted to understand more, and like just the fact that you can own a piece of this company. Basically that's kind of what it is. I mean, obviously it's insignificant when you have one share of something, but that was a concept that kind of intrigued me. And then just over time, I started reading up on it and reading books, and finally I bought my first stock, and just that kind of rush initially. Initially it's a rush, you buy a stock, it goes down the next day. You go like, you don't understand why, but just that excitement just kind of kept me there.
Yeah.
And it definitely lost money, and even now I still lose money, but once you start learning and you become more disciplined, and you have you see it from a more systematic angle instead of just like from gambling or speculating that this is gonna go up or whatever because it's
so
Apple.
Just to clarify, when you say you still lose money, you're saying there's good days and bad days. That's what you're saying.
No, of course, but I mean that's kind of what everything.
It's not a downward spiral, is what you're. I just want to clarify. Just so in case you ever want to get his advice on investing, it's not like.
No, but this is the thing. Like back to what he was saying, like, or I think I was telling to you the other day, it's like, you turn on, the finance channel, you hear all these pundits saying, the economy is doing great, or this stock is, buy this stock now because it's going up, and then it goes down. I mean, I don't listen to any of that without looking into it myself, like doing my own research, and just that same way. I wouldn't tell someone, you should invest in Apple right now because it's going to head up. Like Tuesday, the conference and the new iPhone is going to bring it up. No, because that's just speculation. I have no idea where the market's going on Monday, tomorrow, just like no one else does, because that's not how it works. You can't predict where it's going, So as long as you do your research and you understand the risk that's behind it, and you take those calculations into your system, then do your thing. I can tell you what I think, but I'm not saying this is what's going to happen, or this is do your due diligence.
Yeah, that's the thing.
That's what it comes. And I think that like anything we say here is the same thing. It's my opinion, it's your opinion on whatever it is. It's his opinion, and after that, just take it for that. It's an opinion. If you're still interested, research and check different sources, and then come to your own conclusion on whatever it is.
Isn't that funny? Because that's such just a life lesson, I think. Do your due diligence,
Well, the problem is that most people just are too lazy, and they rather go on what the person on TV tells them, or the person on the president's telling them what to do, whatever.
I don't agree. I don't agree with that. I don't think that people are too lazy. I think
there's more to it, but
I think that people have been taken the ability to do their own research.
Well, I think that's a huge aspect, but I mean, it's kind of hard or a little bit more difficult to elaborate on that too, because you tell that to the average person, you'll be like, no, I can still do I do what I want, or I decide what I'm gonna do. But I definitely agree with that, because like in schools, I think critical thinking, it's not something that's really pushed, to do. You're just there to study for a test and pass it.
Yep.
That's the ultimate goal. I mean, there's nothing else beyond that, you know?
And that provides the school with more funding.
Right. So like going back to what you were...
that takes away from people doing their research. Like here, like read this, answer these questions. That's it.
Yeah, and
take it for that value,
we get
and
so
that's
many
it.
students who do
not like
do
go
this.
and do your research on this, and then there's going to be
that's actually a big problem. And sorry to kind of go outside, but in science, for example, that's actually started to become a big issue that people are worrying about, because what's happening in science is that you have major institutions that are leaders in ideas, and there is a certain amount of pressure for the students to be able to work on those ideas or similar ideas, and are pressured to not go after these radical ideas that may provide a different road, that may be a road that's either unpopular or maybe goes against the status quo. And academia, I mean, there has to be a certain amount of structure into, because again, they have funding.
And I mean, that can also be explained, with psychology, because we like to follow the crowd. We don't like to be isolated. Oh, this guy, he's a weirdo or whatever. People like to be accepted. People like to be, if this is what you guys are doing, okay, then I guess that's what I should be doing too.
Well, think about it, just like you mentioned earlier, about is it possible that people need to do more of their due diligence, or are they just too lazy? I think it's comforting for someone to be able to say, well, I don't want to be responsible for it. You be responsible for it. That way it doesn't fall on me. I think
that's actually another problem too, though, because
even
nowadays people are not taking responsibilities for the stuff.
Well, that's what I mean.
Go back to like 2008 when the financial markets crashed. No, like none of these CEOs that were greatly behind what happened, none of them went to jail. They still took their all their millions, and they retired and did whatever relaxed. So
which I think what's funny about that actually is the same type of financial instrument that caused the bubble in the housing in 2008 that burst, which was a leveraged financial instrument, is the same, fundamentally the same type of instrument that caused the Great Depression in the 30s, which was a leveraged instrument, which is funny because, again, historically the same pattern was being followed, right? So historically, I mean, again, we're not necessarily experts on housing and finance and things like that, but again, do your due diligence. But how is it that the same thing happened during then?
Why wouldn't it?
And that's the thing. See,
why wouldn't the
that's
same
the
thing
other
happen?
question. That's what makes it interesting. Is why wouldn't it?
There's this quote from Warren Buffett that says that what we learn from history, what people learn from history, is that we don't learn from history. And I think that makes a lot of sense, because we forget things quickly. We fall into this pattern, and we just continue and perpetuate it, and that's why again, like going back to the stock market, a lot of that, there's patterns, because psychological pattern, and a big important part of like the stock market is investor psychology. Because once you understand how you think, your emotions, you control yourself, you also need to understand how the psychology of investors in general works. Obviously, you're never going to understand it because it's too complex, but there are patterns, and once you start to identify that, it's easier to take people's money from because I mean that's
when it comes to stocks,
it does. But
that's a good point.
You can see that in not just the stock market, but in other different aspects of life. People just continue to, they forget, and they continue to do the same errors. Like you hear like, it's a good reminder. Well, yeah, it's a good reminder if you're going to apply it. If you're not going to apply it, then
that's the difference between knowledge and wisdom, right?
Yeah.
So I don't think I think you're right, but like to word it in a different way. I don't necessarily think it's that people forget, right? It's the thing is that these cycles are longer than one person's lifespan. So, these things didn't really happen, in our lifetime. Like, we're not going to remember that. And the thing is that history, like the way society is and the way the people that are in power, like they literally obscure the things that they don't want people to have access to, because they stand to benefit, right? So when you're like, well, we forget like the patterns that we like. No. The thing is, society is literally hiding.
Again,
You know what I mean? Their
again,
tracks,
Yeah.
so
there's-
that they can do it again.
Yeah, it's a way
and
to it's a
still
way to
stay on
maintain
top.
conformity.
No, I definitely agree with that. I mean, when
Yeah.
I simplify things just to kind of like, simplify things, because obviously you can go into all the different variables, but
When you
there's
see
way too
small
many,
words, so
there's
you
too
can
many
understand.
variables to, list, in a conversation.
I know.
But
I
yeah,
think
I definitely agree.
the reason I go after those things, right? It's because those small distinctions are what people buy into.
No,
Yeah.
and I'm completely fine with that, because I
Yeah.
I do that with Bryan too, because sometimes
Yeah.
he just focuses on a specific word and takes it too literally, and it's like, nah, there's more to it.
Yeah.
So I'm completely fine when you point that out.
Yeah.
I mean,
And it's funny because the same thing is true with like a blanket statement that we might say like, oh, everyone does this or all people behave this way. And I like the way you mentioned it because you're specifically talking about like financial patterns, is that we can never know exactly how
Of course.
the things are, but you can notice certain overall patterns.
Yeah.
And I think so. Anyway, so that way
'cause
we're not too
there could
harsh
be
on
a, there
ourselves
could
with
be
the
a
use of
pattern,
language.
and then something happened before, like when you were expecting the next thing to happen,
Yeah.
following that pattern, but then this outside thing came in and interrupted that, so it
Yeah.
never continued in that pattern that you were expecting.
Yeah, well, it's like, for example, like when a trend, a financial trend is going downward, right? And then so people kind of say, oh, the overall trend, right, is going down. So even though there's small spikes up, the overall trend is going down, right? But then all of a sudden, the trend starts to actually go up, right? It's not just a spike; it actually starts to go up when the assumption was that the trend is still going down. Right. And so those are the type of things I think where you say it's just how
So
can
like-
you predict that? You know,
So like
those
right
are
now,
things.
I have an investment in lithium, because lithium, that's what batteries are made out of, right? So obviously everyone expects that lithium is going to continue going up. But then I was reading something maybe you guys heard about. I haven't really looked into it, but there obviously there's some new technology trying to figure out other ways to use other elements instead of lithium.
Mhm.
So obviously once that happens and it proves that this is a lot better, more efficient way to produce a battery, or cheaper, whatever it is, that lithium investment is going to start dropping. Hopefully I'm trying to get out at the top. I mean, you can't ever or get at the right moment, but yeah, so I have that in mind. Okay, this is going up right now, but that doesn't mean it's going to go on up forever, because
Everything that goes up.
Yeah,
must come
no,
down.
and I think that's the whole point. Is it's about being dynamic. It's about constantly educating ourselves.